If we'd like to take a 5-minute break, if not, we can then proceed. Is it okay? In which case, we'll proceed. I want to make an announcement, Bruce. These came out on our website today, but Peter, Dr. Yardell, announced the new committee assignments and membership assignments. And so as we start policy, I'd like to welcome as one of our new assignees, I believe, Mr. Rogamo, Steve, and Mrs. Miller. With that, we will have any comments relative to the agenda. Anybody? If not, we'll proceed. And Bruce, I'm going to ask you, how do you want to handle this? Do we want to, you're going to show those up there and then we'll sit up here and look at them? But the audience
in the past I would, but that way you were able to look at it. So you have them on your screen. So we'll just go through what you have on your screen as you get scroll down there.
And can the audience see it?
No, it's not up there for
They
now.
can't, okay.
This room is really not set up. We're going to work on a way to make that work. One way would be to move this back, but we'll look at what needs to be done.
Okay.
Try to make it easier. Because I would rather put them up there because it saves me paper as much as anything else.
So let's start out with number 618. We're looking at the policies that are going to go for second reading.
These are policies for second reading. If you remember, the changes were really dealing with the person who is supposed to revise, some of the activity manuals, which is making sure the superintendent does that, and then also changing from vouchers to the new language, which is requisition. So we went over that last time. I don't know if anybody has any other questions, and this has been reviewed by the solicitor.
Well, let's just ask, does anybody have a question about this one, or we'll proceed to enact it at our next board meeting?
I have a question about graduating classes. Is there a timeline or a deadline for moving the funds?
Yeah, it's state law.
I think that there is something in the state guidelines, but I'll get that from Kathy, but we have to follow those. They have the very last page, they give them a deadline date because some of the obligations they have, they don't get the bills till after graduation. So she sets a date that's going to be reasonable. We used to have a date in there, but some of them, they were finding out that they would buy something and not get the bill till afterwards, and then you can't get everybody back to vote. So they go ahead and make sure they designate all those obligations, and then Kathy works with them to make sure they know when everything is finished. So that's the language we have been working with. That's not been changed. That seems to be working, and we've not had a concern from the high school about that recently.
Okay, and if the class doesn't designate where the money goes, what happens to the, does it just go into the general fund at the high school, or?
I think that I'd have to ask Kathy. Most of them actually designate all unexpended funds. We actually try to say all unexpended funds go toward, even if they don't have enough to buy something, they will send somewhere. So they're careful to make sure that it's not, undesignated. They may not have the exact dollar amount. Obviously, we're going to try to have them look at every year doing something up at the field for a bleacher or something like that, whatever's left to contribute up there. So we have help for them if they need it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it doesn't say if they don't choose what happens, so.
I'll ask Kathy.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Let's proceed then to policy number 801.
801, the only request was that board members wanted to see all the changes that have been put in by the solicitor, because the solicitor is really the one who made all the changes on this one based on new changes in the public records law. So you had seen the cleanup version. This time you were sent out the clean version along with the marked up one from our solicitor. So if you have questions, really he's the one who needs to answer them. So he can do that if you need to do that before you vote on it. Just let me know so I can have him prepare. But that was the only holdup. You wanted to see what were the changes, and that's not a problem. So we'll include them both. It's just you look at the changes, And then you look at the clean copy, it's like an extra 2 pages just because of the change in the law. But if you haven't, just let me know.
Unless there's other questions, we'll take this forward to the board at our next board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Denman. Those are the 2 for second reading. For new policy, Dr. Yale had brought this up, and PSBA just recently after that had developed a policy on comprehensive planning. We had a policy on strategic planning. That is no longer the document that's being done. So you have the policy from PSBA that now talks about comprehensive planning based on the law that deals with that. And in B, rather than give you 85 million copies of all those other policies that have the word strategic plan, I'm letting you know that all those policies have the word strategic plan or planning, and we're going to recommend that when you do this, you change all those words to comprehensive plan or comprehensive planning at the same time, so that we have mirror language throughout our policy manual.
Thanks for saving the paper.
You'll have to get a new overall though, but I'm saving it for now.
Are there any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next item.
I'm going to, if you don't mind, and I'll let you look at policy 317, 317.1, and 806 are a direct result of the new laws that the state enacted regarding child abuse and child prevention. A lot of it has been, mushrooming based on the Sandusky case, and they're being very careful about clearances that affect everybody. So what you have from PSBA is a complete rewrite of those policies. There's no way you can go back and forth because the law changed that much. And these policies from PSBA have been sent to our solicitors, so even though there's a big sea change there, I expect our attorney to also add some comments about things he wants to be more clear for Pennridge. So if this gets approved for the first reading, then he will have to deal with that for the second reading. One of the big sea changes is that everybody that works in a school or volunteers in a school has to have all 3 clearances: child abuse, the fingerprinting by the FBI, and the, I'm missing one. Jim, the other policy, the other clearance?
The child abuse,
I got that one.
fingerprinting, and state police background.
State police background. And that also is going to affect volunteers beginning July 1st. So at the next policy review committee meeting, you will also have one that's specific just for volunteers. Even though it's mentioned in policy about who all has to have them, I think that if I'm a parent out there looking for what I need to do to volunteer, it'd be easier to go on one that said volunteers, and then they can actually go through all the requirements. So we're going to do that, so we're in preparation for the 2015-16 school year, but it's all part of the new law. So there's nothing in here other than what's the change of the laws and for those 3 policies.
I always had a question, and maybe you just answered it. When parents are driving students to these not field trips, but to competitions and everything, I was always concerned if they had their clearances. Like if kids buddy up in some parent's car and they're traveling to like a competition or something.
If they are part of an approved activity from the school, either during the day, because we approve overnight trips, that's what the board has to approve.
Right.
If they are part of an approved trip, then those parents are going to have those clearances to do that. If they're taking their own child, they're okay.
Correct.
When they buddy up, you are correct.
Yeah, I was always concerned about that. So is that's going to be...
Right, because it's not even just about their own car insurance, which they would be liable for. They now, because it's a school activity,
Right.
are now going to have all 3 clearances and the TB test.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's and it's not just Pennridge, it's going to be everybody. I know that Mr. Dugan is working on something that we're going to get on our website. So just like the open houses that are early, we're making sure that all the parents know that starting July 1st, if you're going to volunteer, please be aware there's a change in the law. Don't go beat up your local principal. It's the state that actually has done that.
And then they have to be renewed every 3 years.
Every 3 years, just like me, just like you.
Right. And so people who've been here for longer than 3 years, what's the deadline? Is it by the end of 2015 or is it?
You know what, I just happen to have the right person here who's actually versed in this subject. Mr. Dugan.
Okay, what we're looking at, if someone had their clearances in 2012, The law states that right now they need to look at getting them updated, and which we're in the process of coordinating and notifying those individuals that you need to have it updated. If there's individuals that had it before 2012, say they got it in 2011, well then they have until, or if they never have it, because we have some people on staff that never had to go through the process, they have until December 31st of 2015 to get their clearances. The other thing we're looking at, trying to get it, we hope that all the clearances are relatively close in date, but it is conceivable that we have someone that got a clearance 1 year and then they got the other 2 clearances the next year. Well, the law states that we can go, you go by the earliest anniversary date, and at least that way, as we continue down the road, it would make it easier that they're submitting all 3 clearances at the same time.
Jim has been very helpful in providing information to staff, and he's actually going to be sending out letters. And so we'll get something up on the website so that everybody knows this early enough so they have, enough time to get ready. Obviously, principals were initially concerned. We had meetings today about what happens for my events for the rest of this year. Well, if they've already signed up as a volunteer, with minimal standards that we've already had, they go through this in the school year. So we're actually going to be okay with that. So he's helped them through that.
Right, and actually the first blurb went out today, but it's going to be an ongoing process, and we're all learning it to try to deal with this.
Right.
I would imagine that you're going to get a reasonable amount of flashback from parents who want to do the buddy, but that's the law.
Yeah, that's why we need to let them. I mean, I didn't do that law. I understand why it's there. It probably makes it safer for everybody, and we're all here to make sure that the kids in our buildings, are always going to be in the very best stead possible. I mean, there's other things, pass the trash, which we now have to do extensive research before somebody comes over here. It's going to slow down the hiring process, but it's because to make sure that somebody didn't do something, abuse a child in some other work area, and they just accepted their resignation, and nobody knew about this, and we could hire somebody unsuspecting. Well, that's not fair for our kids. So I understand the reason for these, but there's a cost in time and in paperwork and processing. But I understand that these are probably laws that will help protect our kids.
Do we have any other comments or questions from the committees, people here? If not, do we have any comments from the audience? I'm going to ask you to get your mouth close to that.
Sure. How's that?
That because of I'm an old guy and I'm deaf. Okay.
Sure. Nick Callums, East Rock Hill. Just one quick question, just a generality. Where can I find copies of these proposed revisions to the policies? Just the Pennridge website has not been updated for policies under review since June.
We put proposed policies up after the board adopts them, because if they don't adopt them for first reading, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
So once they adopt them for first reading, then they are posted so that people can look at them. Because obviously that's why we have a 2-step process.
Right.
So whatever the board adopts in January, we'll bring it again to the March meeting. So when they're adopted, they'll be up, because then it's an official document. Just like the kids' care contract, when they adopt that, that's a document that the district has.
So the policy 618 has already gone through first reading, if I'm understanding correctly.
That should have been up there.
Okay, because I'm not trying to criticize anyone, but it just, when I was looking on the website, when I went to policies under review, the only policies under review appeared to have been approved already as full policies, and the upload dates were June 4th, I believe.
No, they should be up. I'll check and make sure they got
Okay.
that. Thanks, Nick.
Yep, that's all I have.
If there are no other, do you have a question?
I had a question. I just remembered. I think it was the December board meeting, there was the policy regarding the booster clubs. And it had a change from the solicitor, and we said we wanted to discuss it. And so I was just wondering what happened to that.
About the having a CPA
Right, having the booster clubs having the,
audited.
right,
By
having their.
CPA.
I just happen to have an update. It would have been on this agenda, except that there are no new regulations by the state about what you have to report in your annual reporting to the state. So that information, I think Kathy Johnson is sending that to our solicitor, and we're going to actually look at it again, because the questions you have is, why would we need somebody to do that? I've already done the research with the schools and the booster clubs. who actually has a CPA official audit, who has to pay for it, who gets them done pro bono. So we have that information. But the other thing is, what do you need to send to the state? So we need to get a better answer. So it'll be on in March, because it's still not up there, but we don't have the right answers because they keep adding new regulations. And so when we bring it back to you, Kathy will be here as well, but we're going to make sure that our solicitor has looked at it so he can say, based on this, these are your options. Because that's a legitimate concern. Why do we need to make them pay that? What actually needs to be in the report? And who actually owns that in case there's a problem down the road.
So then what happens till then with that
We
policy?
were under the same policy.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't, they don't go into the new policy until you adopt it for the second time.
Any other questions? If not,
There's a question.
I have a question.
Ms. Pam?
Zoom in on that.
Get close to the mic.
Sue Furr on West Rock Hill Township. I just wanted to clarify. I wasn't too sure what the answer was for Nick's question. You made changes tonight on a second reading on certain policies. Will that revised edition of that policy be posted before the January board meeting so that the public can see it?
Yes, that's what should be up. Once it's approved for the first reading, and we're in the process of considering, then it's supposed to be out there. That should have been up. Once the board approves it for a first reading, like the ones for the comprehensive plan and the 3 that we just talked about, if the board approves them on the 26th, then they should be up on the website, because they're not a policy, but at least you can see what we're looking to consider, so they should be up.
But isn't it the policy for the district that the public be able to view it for 30 days? So if it was not posted, you've violated the policy if you pass it and it was not available to the public.
That's not our policy.
So your policy is not to share that with the public in
No,
advance?
our practice has been to make sure it has a first reading and a second reading. That's not law. That's what this board has decided to do so that people have an opportunity. There are districts that take a change, put it in, and adopt it as policy as soon as they do that. We try to make sure we do 2 steps so there is an opportunity for conversation and reflection.
So it's not in our policy?
No.
Okay, so we're breaking tradition with our practice?
No, we're actually trying to we're being consistent, having a first reading and a second reading.
But it was not available to the public. Like tonight, you did not read it. I have no idea what it says. So if you're going to tell me that I experienced either a first or a second reading, I would have to tell you, no, I didn't, because you did not make the text of that policy available tonight. You all acted on it, but the public tonight did not see it.
The purpose of an open meeting is so you can watch the board conduct business. They are the ones that need to have that. When they make a decision and we have official working papers that they're moving, then we'll get it posted for people to look at. But it's for the board. They make the decision. We'll get it up.
Okay.
Thank you for your comment.
Sounds-
Anything else? Anybody else? If not, this session is closed. We'll move on to, we'll now move on